We emphasize STEM education. There was an NGA, National Government Association program, competitive program, and 5 states won the right to get $500,000 a year for 4 years. We've set up STEM centers in 4 or 5 different regions in the state where we work with labor, business, industry to try to figure out where are the growing scientific and technological needs coming in education. All this stuff works. You just have a commitment to it. And it is a commitment that is every bit as important to our economic competitiveness and our strength as a nation as ever before, We have to, again, I don't have any secrets other than I think science is elementary, starting at the early age and making science fun. We've got to fight this battle that we're losing. We used to graduate the highest number of engineers every year, but China graduates dwarfs us. Korea, a little country, a sixth of the size of the U.S., graduates as many engineers as we do. We are losing the battle. In 2006, the U.S. Patent Office reported that for the first time in our history, 50% plus of the patents granted went to foreign corporations or foreign nationals. If we don't reverse this trend, and you know where we stand on student testing in science and technology against the rest of the world, if we don't start reversing that trend, we are cooked. Because economic competitiveness used to depend on whether you had natural resources, water, minerals, or your location, or the overall strength of your economy. Now the one thing that drives science and economic competitiveness is the availability of knowledge workers. We are seeing American companies now go to China to tap into the research and the wealth of engineers and scientists. It used to be the other way around. It used to be everybody came here to find the best and the brightest. We've got to reverse that. It's why education is so crucial. Education is not just something that's good for individuals, that's good for our children. It's good for us, and we have to be competitive. And lastly, I think we need to continue to motivate our best and brightest students to go into science and STEM education, and our best and brightest education majors to stay in teaching. And there's no question about that. And you know that every one of you in this room made a sacrifice when you decided to become a teacher. If you're an engineer, there were much more lucrative opportunities in terms of pecuniary reimbursement than there were going into teaching. I believe we have to change that. And I would like to see the Congress and the President replicate the program that Mr. Simon started in New York. And I think most of you are aware of that program. He found college students who wanted to go into teaching and who had science backgrounds, and he told them that he would give them a stipend during their graduate. He gave them a stipend, and then if they chose to teach as opposed to going into a private sector field, he would make up, I think for the first 3 years or 4 years of their work process, he would give them, what's the word I'm looking for, well, he would give them a grant. There's an educational word. He would give them a grant to make up the difference in the salary. And it was a significant grant. It was a $15,000, $20,000, $25,000. We had Mr. Simon in to speak to the NGA a couple of years ago. He estimates that to do this program, to get enough great teachers and great science and engineering and technological majors going into teaching and making sure they stay in teaching for at least 5 years, but hopefully by that time they'll get hooked. To do that would cost us $3 billion nationally. $3 billion. They do it in the New York school system. $3 billion. A lot of money in one sense, not a lot of money in the way that we're spending money today. But I think the most important thing, and I'll close on this note, the most important thing that we have to get through our heads as a society, as Americans, is there are some things that the government does that are investments. It's not just spending money. When you say spending money, people say, oh, we don't want the government to spend money. Well, yes, they do want the government to spend money. The people who were trapped in those towers on 9/11, they sure as heck wanted the most number and the most efficient emergency service personnel they could. They didn't want to cut government spending that day. As we rebuilt New York, there was great requests to help the rebuilding process to the federal government. No one wanted to cut government spending that day. So it's not a question of spending. There is good government spending, which is, in my judgment, investing in our future, and bad and wasteful spending. And what we as citizens have to do is discern the difference between them. Spending on our educational system, paying teachers what they deserve, making it competitive. Those are things that are investments in our future. And not only our children's future, but again, our economic competitiveness. We need to repair our physical infrastructure in this country, our roads and our bridges and our airports and our dams and our levees. Our physical infrastructure is in terrible shape. But we need to repair and buttress and make sure that our intellectual infrastructure thrives as well. We're not going to do that if we don't invest. The gains that Pennsylvania has made would not have happened if we were still spending money at the old levels. And I am proud to say that last year, during the worst economic recession since the Depression, Pennsylvania was the only state in the union that made a significant increase in its basic education subsidy. We increased our basic education subsidy by $300 million. Again, a 101-day stalemate with the legislature who didn't want to do it, but we dug our heels in and we did it. And this year, the economy is a little bit better, but it's not out of the woods yet. We're going to make that additional $300 million in investments. Most states, our sister state in New Jersey, just made a radical cut in its education budget. That's not smart. First of all, the money you save is in the big picture is very little, and you're robbing your future. You're robbing your kids' future and our future. So thanks for what you do. You know, I know if we have these programs to attract people into science education and give them stipends and stuff, it's not going to affect all of you. You did it without those incentives, and I think on behalf of 12.5 million Pennsylvanians, I thank all of you. For those of you who are from outside the state, keep it up, keep preaching the gospel, and again, if I can give you a little commercial, stay politically active. And I don't mean politically active, Democrat or Republican, but if you have people out there who care about education and who put their rear end on the line standing up for education, make sure you stand up for them. And not just teachers, but make sure your neighbors and your friends and people in your church and people in any organizations that you belong to, make sure that they understand the importance of fighting for long-term investment in all education, but particularly in STEM education. Thank you all very, very much.